Assalamu alaikum, bonjour, good afternoon, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, dear all. I am Bokar Alfaba, the country manager of Invest in Africa in Mauritania, and I'm most pleased and honored to welcome you to this very innovative multilingual briefing and procurement awareness webinar available in English, the main room, as well as in French and in Arabic in secondary rooms. Invest in Africa is a leading local content and capacity building, not for profit organization, and we are working across many African countries. We work hard to support small and medium-sized local businesses into industry's journey and by working with key local stakeholders as well. Success for us is about creating a sustainable local business that can diversify and create jobs, but none of this is possible without the support from a leading major like BP and its incredible staff. I'm happy to introduce to you Mrs. Jacqueline Plaha of the procurement team, as well as Mrs. Soumeya Ngaide and Mrs. Anne Gay as presentators. I'm also happy to say that in this call, we have Mr. Sidi Ali Mohammed, as well as Mrs. Asma Day, who are attending this call. Again, many thanks for joining us. You are more than 400 registrants at this webinar, and we may have extra time to allocate to question and answer session right after the presentation made by Jacqueline Plaha. Kindly feel free to suggest questions in the chat box. We cannot make any promises to answer to all of your questions, but we'll do our best to take the most of those questions and to answer it as clear as possible. Excuse us in advance for that, but I just wanted to make very clear that you can raise as many questions as you want in the chat box, in the dedicated rooms, in French, in Arabic, in English, and we'll try to do our best to answer those questions. Jackie, it's up to you if you will to share your screen and take it from there. Thanks again. Have a good session.
Thank you, Bokar, and thank you to the entire Invest in Africa team. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Soumeya to start the session. And Soumeya, if you just give me a minute, I will share my screen so that we can review the material. So I'll let you make your opening remarks, Soumeya, whilst I get my screen ready.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for this webinar. So my name is Soumeya Ngaidi and I am delivery coordinator for BP. So I'm the business facing. And today presentation, it will be to cover the procurement awareness. And now we will start to share with you the video for the project.
My apologies, I did not set that up right. I'll start again.
All right, thank you very much, Jackie. So before we start, let me first introduce the PSTM team, where I will pass the floor to Jackie to present herself.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jackie Klahar, and I'm the Mauritania and Senegal Production Procurement Delivery Manager, working with my two colleagues in each country, Anne and Sumaya. So I will pass the mic to Anne to introduce herself.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Anne-Marie Gaye. I am the Senegal Procurement Delivery Analyst for BP. I am based in Senegal and dialing from Dakar today. Once again, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
All right, thank you. And as well, I thank you and thanks Asma Day and our financial lead and CD Ali, our communication manager, to joining this call. And now, as you are aware that the presentation of today is to share with you our procurement awareness briefing. So we will go back to the presentation. So next, please, Jackie. All right, as we have shared with you the video, it was about to give you an overview on the project. So basically, we are located in Mauritania and Senegal. The operator is BP. We have partners Cosmos and SMHP and Petrosen. So basically, the type it is near short floating LNG facility, and the first gas is planned for 2023. Sorry. Estimated amount of gas is 15 trillion cubic feet. Next page, please. What we will cover today, basically, as we mentioned earlier, that we have English, French, and Arabic presentation. So, and it will be cover the project, what is about our values and behavior and code of conduct. We will as well share with you the BP procurement or global team, sourcing process steps, the importance of the RFI process, and the prerequisite and sourcing and contracting tools, and the opportunities for development phase and operating phase coming soon. Next page, please. So basically, BP, we have 5 values and in the code of conduct. So basically, we have the safety, respect, excellence, courage, and one team. So in the safety, so as all of you know, that safety is first. So safety is good business. The respect, we respect the world in which we operate. Excellence, we follow and uphold the rules and the standards we set for our company. The courage, we always strive to do the right things. And one team, we accomplish more together. About the code of conduct, basically, we guide to doing the right things and explain how our values should guide our decisions. Health, safety, and environmental, our people, our partners and suppliers, where you are, government and communicate, and protecting our assets. And all this, actually, our values and code of conduct are available on www.bp.com in English and French in Arabic. Next page, please. So the code of conduct, partners and suppliers. Basically, we have the gifts and entitlement, conflict of interest, bribery and corruptions, anti-money laundering, human rights, competition and antitrust, international trade. Next page, please. Objective of the session is to increase the local contractor participation in requests for information with a view to receiving the request for proposals and potentially winning contracts. reach a broad range of locally owned companies in both Mauritania and Senegal, explain the process, the sourcing process, explain the value of full detailed responses to the RFIs, share information about the timing of opportunities. Next page, please. So BP and procurement, a global team. Basically, in here we would like to share with you how our procurement team is working. We have what we call it business facing. So this is the regional teams where I am filling in. And we have the category management, supply facing team, and we have the sourcing and contracting uh, team who will be managing all these RFP. So basically, all your communications regarding the RFP, RFI, it will be coming from our sourcing and contracting team. Any business facing, it will be done by myself here in the region, together with Anne from Senegal. Thank you. Next, please.
Excuse me, just before we move to slide 8, I would just like to make the point that the reason that we are showing this image is to indicate to you that the teams that manage the requests for information and the requests for proposals, the RFIs and the RFPs, they are located all over the world. We do have sourcing events that are currently ongoing, and the evaluation of those is happening in virtually every continent or region that we show you here. So the way that BP works is truly global, and although you are talking to the regional team today, the three of us don't do all of the work. We are backed up by a significant team that is in all of these regions that that you can see on the screen. So thank you. I will hand back to Sumaya. I think you were about to hand to Anne. Sumaya?
Yes, thank you very much, Jackie, for the remarks. And I would like to pass the floor to Anne to go through the next slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sumaya, and thank you, Jackie, as well. For the people who have just joined the presentation, again, my name is Anne-Marie. I'm the Senegal Procurement Delivery Analyst and based in BP, working in Senegal and dialing from Dakar today. So with this slide, I'm going to present you and give you an overview of the BP sourcing process. So a very important point that I would like to make is that a sourcing process in BP can take up to 1 year. The reason why it can take up to 1 year is that the sourcing process is made of 5 key steps, which are the by bidder identification, the request for information. In general, the request for information, which is the RFI, which is comprised of step 1 and step 2, can take up to 14 weeks. The request for proposal can last up to 16 weeks. The fourth phase, which is the evaluation, the clarification, the negotiation phase, can take up to 17 weeks. Finally, the award contract and issuance of PO can take up to 9 weeks. So during the whole process, it is very important for you not to hesitate asking any request of clarification and at any time during the whole process. And please note that the request for clarification shall be submitted via Ariba. And I would like to stress that during the whole sourcing step, Ariba, which is the BP tool for sourcing activities, is the only one tool that will be used to maintain communication between BP and the bidder community. We want to ensure fairness and transparency during the whole sourcing process, and no other mean of communication will be accepted. And finally, please note that during the whole sourcing process, any response to a clarification request that will be made by any of the bidder will be issued to the whole bidder community so that everyone is at the same level of information. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is a roadmap from bidder identification to contract award, and it can give you a better idea of all the sourcing process. So as you will see, we do have mainly three means of identifying local bidders. We did a couple of months ago an industrial baseline study just to understand the capability of the local market in both Mauritania and Senegal. We are working also closely with Invest in Africa in both Mauritania and Senegal as well to identify bidders for any of our sourcing activities. But we do have also an internal market intelligence in BP made of maybe colleagues from other countries that we were mentioning during the last slide. But also we do have regional market intelligence in Soumaya and myself. We are both based in the region and understand the market very well. So for any sourcing activities, we will be inputting as well and make sure that the relevant bidders can be included in all the events. Please note that if appropriate, we can also add international bidders as well on the bid list. So once the bid list is set up, we will proceed to what we call RFI, Request for Information. Please note that the intention of an RFI is to understand, not in detail, but in a very general manner, the capabilities of the local bidders and the international bidders as well. Once the RFI is closed, the BP project team will be proceeding to the evaluation of the responses, and different approvals, both internal and external, will be sought. So once the approval are granted and we can move to the next phase, which is the RFP, we will be issuing a very detailed and very comprehensive technical and commercial actually information within Ariba for you to be able to submit your proposal, both technical and commercial proposal. Once the RFE is closed, the BP project team will be proceeding again to the evaluation and the responses will be looked in detail by our sourcing team. And different approval will be again sought internally and externally. So as my colleagues were saying just before, the people that will be evaluating your proposal are based all over the world. They don't know your business, and it's very important for you to provide a very detailed response for them to evaluate in a very good manner. After the evaluation process is finalized, we will go to the contract award phase. And the successful bidder will be awarded the contract. Okay, next slide, please. So depending on the result from the request for information, we may need to decide to split the contract into different service lines to maximize the participation of the local bidders. We have done that in the past, and we really look forward doing that again in the future as well. So this is exactly the reason why it is very important for you bidders to supply a very detailed and comprehensive response, as your response will most likely determine the sourcing strategy that we are going to implement. So even if you believe that you cannot supply a specific service, but another service, we do encourage you to specify that in your response, as we might need that service in the future. And I do want to emphasize that we really value all the responses that you will be providing during the RFI phase. Your responses are a very reliable source for information of us and will serve as market intelligence as well for us in the future. Next slide, please, Jackie. As I stated earlier in one of the previous slides, Ariba is the BP sourcing tool that will be used for all the bidding activities. And here, actually, in the slide, you can see that depending on your responses to the RFI, we might need actually to include only local bidders to a sourcing activity. We can also include international bidders. So in a contract, you can have a mix of local and international bidders as well. So this is why I was stressing that your response to the RFI is very important as it will determine the next phase, which is the strategy for the RFP. Next slide, please, Jackie.
So would you like me to build this slide? Because it builds slowly, so it does this. Or would you like me to talk about this slide?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So just before I talk about this slide, let me just go back one slide to slide number 10. So what we were showing here is that each contract may comprise several service lines. So if I take fabric maintenance, for example, you can see that the fabric maintenance contract comprises 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 service lines. When we ask you to respond to an RFI, we will ask you about the service lines that you can, that your business can provide. And it may be that when we have the responses to the RFI, we get a response that looks like this, where some contractors say they can do everything, as highlighted here. If this was the answer, we would be able to issue an RFP to all of these contractors for the entire scope. But it could be that some contractors say, I can only do part of the scope. In that event, we would consider breaking the scope into lots so that we could include, for example, more national bidders. If we saw that for one of the service lines, it was clear that there is strong competition in the local market for that item, we would then advise all bidders that it is our expectation that service line would be provided via a local company, and that it is our expectation that they would subcontract that part of the scope to a local company. In this way, we try to make sure that everybody is given a fair chance at the work. And to repeat what Anne said before, this is why it's very important that even if when you receive the RFI, you feel that you cannot provide all of the service lines shown, please tell us which ones you can do, because there is still an opportunity for us to structure the request for proposal that will include you, because we are trying to make sure we give everybody an equal opportunity to the extent that we can, based on the information that you provide. So I'll hand back to Anne. Would you like me to move on to the next slide, Anne?
Yes, please, Jackie, please to move. Thank you. So as I was telling before, Ariba is the BP sourcing tool that will be used for all of the bidding activities. So invitation to participate to RFI and RFP phase will be hence issued via Ariba. So this slide is showing you how a typical invite from Ariba looks like. And you can also see on the right here, actually, the kind of message that will be included in the email. So sometimes the feedback that we get from the bidders is that they are actually expecting to receive email from a BP email address. Please note that this will not be the case. All emails will come from an Ariba domain, such as the one that is highlighted in green. So another important point that I would like to stress is that we do strongly encourage you to monitor your spam box as well. Sometimes it can happen that depending on your organization restrictions, that emails are actually going directly to the spam box, and you might miss them as well. So it's very important for you to be both checking your inbox and your spam box as well. Next slide, please, Jackie. Okay, so one question that you might have is, how do I log into Ariba? So the very first time that you will be receiving emails from Ariba, there will be on the bottom of the email an invitation to actually allow you to sign up and register in Ariba. So you will need to enter some of the information and create your account. So once you create your account, it will be very smooth, and every other time that you will need to connect in Ariba, you will just need to enter your username and your password as well. Next slide, please, Jackie. So during the bidding process, you might need help with Ariba because we are understanding that sometimes you might face technical issue to access to Ariba, or you might maybe not understand how Ariba is working. So we want you to know that we have a very wide team, an Ariba support team, that will be here to provide support and explanation and clarification if needed. So this team is comprised of people who do speak multiple languages. They are based all over the world, and they will be ready to provide support as soon as needed. So once you go to the login page, you will see here a question mark and also a tab, a support tab that you will need to click to contact them. And you will also need to fill in the type of help that you will require for the team. And then, yes, yeah, you can log in, and then they will be in touch with you shortly. You can also call them by phone. Usually there is a phone number that will be made available for you to contact them directly as well. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for following. Now I will pass the floor to Jackie.
Thank you very much, Anne. Appreciate it. So at this point in the process, you will have gone through the request for information, and assuming that you have provided us with comprehensive responses, we will have identified you as a company that we think should be able to quote effectively for the work and potentially win it. So I'm now going to take you through the request for proposal, the evaluation and contract award steps. So in the same way that you will have received the request for information, you will receive a request for proposal through Ariba, and all of the information that's just been shared with you about what it looked like and how you sign in, all of it will be very familiar to you at that point because it's exactly the same tool. So here we're talking about steps 3, 4, and 5. This is this period shown along the bottom here. The difference between an RFI and an RFP is that in the RFP, you will now receive the full detailed description of the scope of work in question. You will also receive a draft copy of the proposed contract for you to review and comment upon. You will receive technical and commercial questions, and those technical questions will also include questions around health, security, safety and environment, HSSE, and it will also include questions around quality and local content. You'll be given 3 or 4 weeks, excuse me, to respond. And during that bidding period, again, anything that you're not sure of, ask your clarification questions via the Ariba tool and we will respond. Now, Anne rightly advised that when we receive questions, we share the question and the answers with everybody so that everybody has the same level of information at the same time. However, if during the RFP bidding period, we receive a question from a bidder where it is clear that this question is around their own specific technology or their own commercial idea that gives them a competitive edge, we would only answer the question to them and we would not share that question with anybody else. Excuse me. I'm just going to halt for a minute because I see lots of people putting their email address in the chat. That is not necessary. We have your emails from registering for this tool. Bokar?
Jack, no, it's okay. It's okay. We handle that. It's just a double check. People are so eager to get the slide. I rather want them to share their email address to be sure that we'll receive it. Some of them were able to connect directly to this webinar without registering. So that's why I rather gather all the emails to have double check. Does it make sense? Is it clear?
Absolutely. Sorry, I did not realize that anybody joined without registering. No problem. It was just that it's going to hide the questions when we go back through, so no problem at all.
No, it's okay. I am gathering all the questions. I'm summarizing all the questions in for you. So I will share it with you in about for 20 minutes, just after the presentation. It's okay. I handle it.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Thank you so much. And you've just reminded me, Bokar. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just to say we are more than 100 people simultaneously connected. That shows how people are interested in what you are doing, Jackie.
Okay, very good. Well, I hope that you folks listening to this presentation, that you are that this is helpful to you. We are absolutely open to answering questions in this meeting. We'll try to get to as many as we can, and those that we don't get to, we will take the questions that we receive from this and all future sessions of this type to prepare a frequently asked questions document that will help you with working with BP. So yeah, we appreciate the interest. So I'll go back to the presentation. So let's assume that you have submitted your proposal. We then go into the next phase, phase 4, which is the evaluation, clarifications, and negotiations stage. Sorry, excuse me. This is where if we don't understand something in your proposal, or you haven't answered a question at all, or if we see an anomaly in your quotation, we will come back to you with clarification questions. If we think that there are so many questions or the question is complex and we need a meeting, we will set that up. We will go through the detailed technical commercial evaluation of your proposal, and we will review your local content submission. That is more applicable to international contractors than it is to national or local contractors. And applicable to everybody is we will undergo counterparty due diligence. And this is to ensure that we are not entering into business with any company that is on a registered banned list, or that they've committed fraud or anything like that. We, as shown in the diagram a few slides back, when we have completed our evaluations, we prepare what is called a recommendation to award document that is reviewed and approved internally and or externally as required. Once we have approval for that recommendation to award, we then finalize the contract with you. We issue the contract to you for signature, and once the contract is signed, we then prepare the purchase order. Now, you can only execute work against a purchase order. You can only invoice against a purchase order. So having the contract without a purchase order does not allow you to start work. Once the purchase order has been issued, if a kickoff meeting is required, we will set up the kickoff meeting with you and we will start the mobilization process. I'm now going to move to slide 16. So you may be curious about how we evaluate bids. And the way we do that is we split into two evaluation teams. There is a technical team and there is a commercial team. The technical team will review the responses to the scope of work, review the HSSE, that is health, security, safety and environment responses, the quality responses and the local content plan. Typically, the proposals are reviewed technically first, and only the technically acceptable proposals are then opened for the commercial evaluation. The commercial team will look at commercial issues such as the contract rates that you propose, the payment milestones that you propose, any comments that you have on the terms and conditions, and whether those comments change the risk profile of the contract. And we will look at cyber risk because within BP, cyber risk is a very significant risk for us. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. We always reserve the right not to award the contracts to the lowest priced offer, and or we may choose to split the award. So in the same way, in the diagram where we showed you that sometimes we may issue an RFP with more than one lot, it may be that from one RFP we issue more than one contract. And to kind of further explain that the lowest price offer is not always the one that wins, this diagram here is to show you that we use a scoring system. For each element of the evaluation process, we will give it a weighting. That weighting will add up to 100, and then each supplier will get a score for their response to each section of the evaluation process, and then that will be calculated. So your gross score or your original score times the weighting gives a weighted score that gives a total, and typically then this information is used to inform the contractor selected. Moving to slide 17. Here I want to talk about some of the prerequisites for doing business with BP and being successful. So here, I want to talk about digital readiness first, because for us, cybersecurity is one of BP's highest priority risks. The breach to cybersecurity presents a risk to the security of our information, to our IT systems, and it can be a risk to the operation of our assets around the world. Therefore, we take cybersecurity extremely seriously. What we have seen is that there is a very strong likelihood that cyber attacks will target our suppliers in order to gain access to information or to our systems. And we say that because we've seen that happen many, many times. And so we work together with our suppliers to share the role of protecting our and your informations and systems. So I've spent quite a bit of time talking about that, and that really talks to this bullet here. In order to do business with BP, you really need to have a federated email address. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is your email address needs to be something like first name dot last name at companyname.com. We do not accept gmail.com or yahoo.fr or hotmail or anything that is a what would you call that, a non-federated open free email address, because they do not have sufficient security associated with them. Now, BP's stance on cybersecurity and its suppliers is available on a public website, and we will share these slides with you. We will share it in a way such that you can click on all of these links. These links lead to publicly available information, so you will get this, you can see. So let me go back to the top here. We showed you that we have several ways of identifying suppliers, whether it is through a report that we've already generated, whether it's through personnel in our organization that understand the local market, or our internal market intelligence tool, or through Invest in Africa. We have several ways of identifying suppliers, but given that the majority of the people that are executing this work are situated all over the world, the first thing that anybody will do will be to initiate a web-based search trying to find you. So if you do not have an internet presence, I recommend that that's something that you consider doing and making it easy to find you online. So those are the first 2 points around digital readiness. The next 2 points, it's about the tools that you use. We have seen in this region already that many of the suppliers we talk to are using old old office suites and old operating systems. To be successful, we really strongly recommend that you use a modern Microsoft Office suite. It doesn't have to be on a PC. It can be on an iMac or a MacBook, whatever you choose. But I recommend that you get the most up-to-date modern Office suite so that you can communicate effectively, and that all of the functionality of the suite is available to you. Likewise, we recommend that in terms of the operating system that you use the most up-to-date operating system, whether that is Windows 10 or I don't remember what the latest Mac Apple system is. I should know, but I don't remember it. And make sure that you're using up-to-date browsers like Microsoft Edge or Chrome. I don't recommend, for example, Internet Explorer 11. And the reason I say this is because most digital tools that we use, whether they are a BP tool or a tool that is used by many companies in the world, like SAP or like Ariba, they only really work on modern operating systems and modern browsers. We have seen firsthand where contractors who are the incumbent, who are already working with us, have struggled to access certain tools because the browser that they're using is so old that it cannot open the information that has been sent to them. So I know I'm laboring this point, but 2021, we work in a very digital way, and this will cause you a problem if you don't attend to it. The second point I'd like to make is to respond to the RFI and the RFP. when we receive the names of suppliers to whom we should issue the RFI, wherever that information has come from, we never exclude anybody. Any name, any supplier name that we get, so long as you have a federated email address and not a Gmail or a Yahoo or a Hotmail address, you will receive the RFI. And what we request very wholeheartedly is that even if you think that you cannot support the entire scope that we're asking about, please respond and say, this scope of work comprises 5, 6, 10 service lines, but I can only do one. That is still more information than we knew. And if you can only do one, it doesn't eliminate you. It just tells us that maybe we should take that one service line out and bid it on its own. But if you don't respond, we can't do anything. And I'm really strongly talking about this point because over the last year, we have issued many RFIs to very large numbers of local suppliers. Sometimes the RFI list is 30, 80, 90 people that we send the RFI to and people don't respond. It's if you don't respond, you absolutely cannot receive the RFP. So don't eliminate yourself. Write back and say, I can only do this part, or I can't do anything, or this is not my business. You have written to the wrong company. My business does X, Y, and Z, and you are asking about A, B, and C. All information is good information. All information is kept. So that's my second point about if you're declining, please say why. Again, even if you've received an RFI and you've got questions, ask questions, send your questions through Ariba. And when you're responding to both the RFI and the RFP, please do not assume that the person evaluating your responses knows you or your business, because 99% of the time they won't know anything about you. And when they are evaluating your responses and scoring it, they will only score it on the basis of what you say. Again, very important. And lastly, on this slide, despite this awareness session being provided in English and French and Arabic, all communication with BP is in English. All documents you receive will be in English. All correspondence of any nature will be in English. So it's very important that you can respond in English. When you respond with your proposal, whether it is a response to the RFI or the RFP, if you respond in a language that is not English, you will be disqualified. So I'll move on to slide 18. This slide, excuse me, talks about the tools that we use. I've written them here in the order in which they will appear to you. So the one that has got the dotted line around it, this is the main piece of software that you will use to interact with BP in the first instance. So you'll hear us calling it Ariba, but the full title is SAP Ariba OneSource. This is the tool that we use for the request for information, the request for proposal, for all communications before the contract is awarded. If we do any e-auctions, and we may or may not, we will do them through Ariba. And this is the tool where we store all contracts. The next piece of software that we use that you may not visibly see is Aravo. Whenever we are doing any counterparty due diligence so that we can be sure about who we're doing business with and that there's no risk of bribery, corruption, fraud, money laundering, anything like that, we do that through a tool called Aravo. If the contract, excuse me, if the contract, if you are successful and you are awarded the contract, we do not do wet signatures in BP. All contracts are signed electronically, and the tool that is used is DocuSign. You may already be familiar with that. It's a very simple, self-explanatory, sorry, that's not the word I want, simple, intuitive tool, which you can have on your laptop or on your mobile phone. And if you have been awarded a contract, as I said earlier, we will then create the purchase order in SAP. So here in your contract, you will have in the contract payment section, you will have all of the rates associated with your contract. We put those into SAP into what we call a price book. It lists all the rates applicable to your contract. And from that, we will create the purchase order. And it's against the purchase order that you do the work. And it is against the purchase order that you submit your invoice. So that's the entire process end to end. I want to turn now to talk about opportunities and where they lie. So far, you have met myself and Anne and Sumaya, and we've told you that we are the business-facing Mauritania and Senegal procurement team. Just to be clear about how we're separated in BP, we have a project team who are busy procuring the goods and services to build the asset that you saw in the video. Once the asset is built, that team will dissolve and disappear and go to work on another project somewhere in BP. But the team that will be with the asset for its entire life is the regional business-facing team, myself, Anne, and Sumaya. And so in terms of opportunities, there are two types of opportunities in this market. There are opportunities associated with the project, and then there are opportunities associated with maintaining the asset for the life of field. So I'm going to move to slide 18 and talk about during the development phase or the project phase, BP has awarded contracts to what we call our tier 1 contractors. So very broadly speaking, we have awarded contracts to the 4 companies shown here. These contractors are Eiffage, who are building the floating liquefied nitrogen gas facility, McDermott, who is doing subsea wells and subsurface, Technip FMC, who is doing the floating production, storage and offloading vessel, and Golar, who manage the liquefied nitrogen gas hub terminal. So just to be clear, and I'm sorry if I'm teaching my granny to suck eggs here, but the FNG facility and the FPSO, those are the 2 ships that you saw in the video before. It may be that I've got this round the wrong way. I may have got this round the wrong way. My apologies. In fact, I have got this round the wrong way. I'm sorry. Golar is the FLNG facilities and Eiffage is the hub terminal. I'll correct that on the next version of the slides. I didn't notice before. Either way, excuse me, these contracts have already been awarded. Each one of these contractors may award their own subcontracts. The method that they use will be their own sourcing processes. The tools that they use will be their own tools. This is not something that BP is managing. The opportunities for local companies to work on the development phase is here at the subcontractor level as a subcontractor to one of the tier one contractors. Now, I believe that McDermott has their own contractor event later on this month. That may have already been publicized. So if you're interested in opportunities on the project through McDermott specifically, I recommend that you sign up for that session. From a production procurement perspective, we have many tens of contracts that we are in the process of awarding. Excuse me. Sorry, may I just take a sip of tea? 1 minute. Sorry, been talking for a long time.
Take your time. So thanks again for raising some questions. We're almost done. So soon we'll start to answer some questions. Again, very sorry if we are unable to answer to all of your questions. Okay, we promise to do our best to give you clarity. Jackie, are you okay?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I've only got 2 more slides, and
okay, great,
ready to go. Thank you, Bokar. So from the production side, these 2 slides look very similar, and they're hard to read on the screen because it's a lot of information. But you'll get a copy of the slide, so you'll be able to look at this in more detail. So what this slide and the next one that looks very similar, I'll just show it to you for a minute. What these 2 slides are is a list, excuse me, of the production, the operation phase contracts that we are working on. These are the planned activities. You will see that some of them we've been working on for quite some time, and we've either made an award recommendation or we are on the point of doing so. These are planned dates, so there may be some slippage, and it may be that these are not quite as described. I'll give you an example of that. So fabric maintenance, which is the 3rd contract on the list, it looks as though that contract award has already happened, but it really hasn't. However, we have been working on it for a long time. The significance of the blue and the grey boxes, excuse me, is that anything that is in grey, this is a service that we intend to buy from the original equipment manufacturer. So in the description, you will see the name, and in brackets at the end, it will say OEM, original equipment manufacturer. Those items are not open to the general market. Other than that, everything is open to anybody that we identify and who passes the RFP successfully. Then you'll receive the the RFI successfully. You'll receive the RFP and you'll get an opportunity to bid. I would like to just make this last point. We have seen in the past that sometimes smaller companies may not be able to manage a contract on its own. If you think there is an opportunity for you to enter into a joint venture with another company, whether that is another national company from your own country, or with a company from Senegal, or with an international company to be able to win the work, I would seriously consider that. I would in fact encourage it. So do not limit yourself when you're thinking about the opportunities that exist. So the last slide, slide 21, again is just pretty much the same information, shows all of the contracts that we're going to list, and we will share this with you so that you can review it. That is all the information I wanted to share. I hope I've left enough time for questions. I'll go to Bokar. Perhaps you can help Bokar with the questions that we've got. Let me.
Yes, most definitely. I share with you the question list, and I can share it as well on the chat box. But basically, they are on same thematics. How to work with BP? Is BP obliged somehow to push for local content? Is BP obliged to work with to force its subcontractor to work with a Mauritanian company? And the language also, it's a real issue. Do the RFIs as well as the RFP have to be written in English? So you already answered this one.
Okay.
So basically, it's the same question. Do you want me to share with you on the chat box, or it's
Actually,
okay?
no, because I think you've emailed me the questions and I can see them on my screen. So
Definitely, yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now because I think there is no further value in that.
No, exactly. And I will share for all the people the question in the chat box. So we are transparent. We have nothing to hide. As we keep saying, we will answer as many questions as possible. So sorry if you don't answer personally to your question, but we'll get back to you on frequently asked for question. Okay. Thanks for that.
So I'll start answering questions as I can see them on my own screen. So
exactly.
Let me. So one of the first questions: the bidder identification. Will it be through shortlist or is it open? I hope I've answered that earlier, but just to be clear, it is open. The only way there's only two things that would prevent a bidder, three things that would prevent a bidder receiving the RFP. That is, if you do not, if you're not found to be a company that we think is technically capable of doing the work, you wouldn't get to the RFP. In terms of getting on the bid list for the RFI, the issue will be if you do not have a federated email address, typically we don't register you because that presents a significant cyber risk to the company. Outside of those things, so long as we have found you, then and we understand the scope of work that you're interested in, then you will receive the RFI. And again, genuinely, we have issued RFIs to very significant numbers of people in the past. And let me just be clear about that. You know, BP does have an obligation to optimize local content. I think somewhere that question has been asked. And we are very, what's the word I want? We are committed to that, right? We are committed to local content in a very real way. So when we issue RFIs to these absolutely huge lists of people and they don't respond, we have in the past spent a lot of time ringing and writing and asking people to respond. And that's taken up a huge amount of effort for us to do. So for me here, I'm really pleading, if you receive an RFI, if you don't want to respond, at least write back and say no and say why, because that saves a lot of effort on our side chasing you to respond. So no is the answer. We don't shortlist the RFI list. to begin with. Sorry, just one moment. My computer is wanting me to stop, and I'm trying to stop it from doing that. Okay, let me go to the next set of questions. How is the bidder identification process done? And how to be part of the identified bidders for specific domain? Okay, so again, I hope that that question was answered in the session. We identify bidders through 4 methods. We have a report that gives us information about suppliers in the market already. That was a report commissioned by us based on our known scope of work. We have people in country that know and understand the market. We have our own in-house market intelligence software, I think it is. It's called EvalueServe, and we also work with Invest in Africa. Now, let's have a look here. What does it say? Under which criteria are companies chosen for RFIs? Okay, let me ask, is there any way of finding out, Bakar, whether this question still remains unanswered? Is Bakar there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Is that question fully answered, would you say?
Which one? Which number?
I've answered questions 1, 2, and 3. They're all sort of much of a muchness.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
No.
Then I will hand over to Anne to answer the next question, number 4. Anne?
Yes, thank you, Jackie. I think that one of the questions is that sometimes you can participate to an RFI, but you don't get any response. It's the question number 4. So as I said previously, a bidding sourcing event in BP can take up to 1 year. We acknowledge that 1 year is a very long time, maybe, but we have some steps that we need to go through. So during that 1 year, maybe we will not come back to you and let you know the result of the bid unless the bid is over. However, we will maybe from time to time communicate with you on the key milestones. But we do also encourage you to come back to us via Ariba and request maybe information that you would like to know. So if, for example, you see that you don't have maybe any feedback from us, you are totally free to contact the BP team and make an inquiry on the status of the process.
Okay. Let me have a look, because I think I'm looking through the questions here. I think some of these questions have already been answered. Here's a question. It says, are the same processes applied to your subcontractors? So let me answer that one. And again, I absolutely don't mind repeating myself, because you may have asked that question before I commented. I think I answered it before, but I'll just say the sourcing processes, the timing, the tool that is used, the evaluation process, the scoring that are used by our subcontractors is entirely their own process. We don't dictate it. We don't know what it is. It is entirely their process. So we can't describe it. I would say that it will be broadly the same, in that they will issue some sort of request for proposal, or a quotation request, or an invitation to tender, or an invitation to bid. There is lots of different ways of describing the same thing. They will receive your proposals. They will have clarification meetings in exactly the same way. Or clarification questions. They may negotiate final points, and they too will do some sort of award recommendation which they will have to get approved either internally or externally. So whilst I can tell you that the process steps are essentially the same for any EPC contractor, I can't describe it in detail because I don't work for any of them. Let's have a look here. Let me have a look here. Here's a question. Who will manage the maintenance of the FPSO and LNG during the development phase? During the development phase. Ooh. The truth of the matter is I can't answer that question. I will need to check. So I'm not going to pretend I know the answer. Who will manage the maintenance of the FPSO and the LNG during the development phase? Okay, let me just unpack that question a little bit because I think it has two words in it that don't go together. So the development phase is the project phase, and there is no maintenance during that phase. That is the phase in which those two vessels are being built in China today. Once they have been built and they have been sailed to their final resting location offshore of Mauritania and Senegal, you will now be in the operating phase, and the maintenance of those two vessels will be split. So the LNG vessel will be operated and maintained by Golar. The FPSO will be operated and maintained by BP through the contractors who will receive the various contracts that I showed you on the last two slides. I hope that that's clear. So the development phase is the project phase, and the vessels are being adapted for use in China by Golar and the companies escape my name. This company's escaped my memory. It's been
Maternap, Technip.
Yes, but I can't remember which one. And since I've got it wrong on the slide, I'm going to say it wrong now. I'm not sure. Let me listen. You Bokar, you know that I don't like to say something if I'm not sure. So let me find the slide. Let me tell you. One second. Okay. The FPSO is Technip FMC, and the FLNG is Golar. So during the development phase, also known as the project phase, that is being managed by those two contractors. Once we have achieved first gas, those two vessels are offshore Mauritania and Senegal. It will be that the FPSO is managed by BP and the FLNG managed by Golar. How can we contact tier 1 or tier 2 companies? A good question to which I do not know the answer today. I commit to getting that information from the project team and feeding that back, but I don't have that answer today. There's a question here again that I cannot answer, but I'll just say the question so that you know that I've seen it. It says, McDermott seems to subcontract the supply to, I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to say Sogeco, Sogeco.
Sogeco.
Sogeco, thank you.
You have a good French. Congratulations.
Now you know that that's not true. McDermott seems to subcontract the supply to Sogeco in the notice that has been published. Who is managing the process, McDermott or Sogeco? I do not know the answer to that question. But the McDermott session is quite soon, I think, Bokar. Do you know when the McDermott engagement session is being held?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm happy to share with all the registrants that it will be the 28th of July. We go public about the announcement last Monday, and there's a massive media campaign that would start. That's already started on Mauritanian website and so on. So yeah, 28th of July, you will have the answers of your question regarding McDermott and Sogeco, inshallah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sumaya, will you take the next question, please?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Basically, there is a question here. I will go through the question regarding the RFI. If the legal documents for the creation of the suppliers are in French, can we submit them as such, or do they also have to be translated in English to be submitted? Yes, indeed, and they should be in English. As we shared with you during the presentation, you don't know who will be evaluating your paper, so it's better to make sure that all your documents submitted is in English, so it will be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I have another question here that I will try to answer. It says, if you are registered with BP, are you registered with level 1 subcontractors, meaning Eiffage, McDermott, Technip, and Golar? So let me answer that question. The answer to that is no. If you are registered with BP, you're registered with BP. If you are registered with McDermott but not registered with BP, you are not registered with BP. So you will need to make sure that you are known to each of the, let's call it, buying companies that you wish to do business with. There isn't a single portal that captures all contractors for all of the buying companies. And then there's more to this question. It says, the rules for subcontracting are themselves the same. Evaluation of content, etc. So again, I cannot answer how Eiffage, McDermott, Technip, and Golar evaluate their bids. I don't know, and I don't think I will ever know, because that is their own internal process. And the last part of this same question, it says, does BP follow the evaluation of their subcontracting? Yes and no. Maybe not yes and no, that's not quite fair. So they do their subcontracting. I hesitate to answer because I am not working on this project, and although I've worked on many BP projects, I don't know what is happening on this project. Let me put that question to the project team and come back. I know that we are very interested in their subcontracting. What I don't know, what I cannot say, is whether BP approves their award recommendations or not. What I do know is that we are very interested in who they subcontract to, because we are monitoring local content down to that level. So we do follow it, but I don't know quite how it's done.
Jackie,
Yes.
it's we've almost done. Maybe I can raise a last question, which is quite interesting, I think. It's regarding the Ariba email address. People everything is turning around Ariba, about how to connect to Ariba, and how to get informed about RFE and RSP. Maybe you can just again clarify this question, and then we will be able to close this very interesting webinar.
So to be honest, Bokar, I don't quite understand what the question is. Do you mind rephrasing it?
Actually, the question of everybody, they want to know how to get access to Ariba, how to be informed about RFI, how to be informed about the RFP. There's still lack of proper understanding of the steps. So I rather suggest, it's your call, of course, you just get back to the proper slide and just give them that short and definitive message, just to clarify how to get, how to be informed about potentialities with BP. Does it make sense?
Kinda. So I'm going to make an attempt, and we will see if I have understood. So let me go back. I'm going
to all the participants. I just raised one final question to Jackie, and then we'll close it. We'll close the session for today, and we very much expect you to be part of our next webinar soon to come on the 28th of July with McDermott and Sujeko, of course, on the behalf of BP, SMHPM, and the Cosmos Energy.
So for the other two rooms, I'm sharing slide 9 at the moment.
Just give us just 30 seconds to make sure that we are all on the same page here on all the rooms, please. I get back to you. Just 1 second.
Sure. Excuse me.
Jackie, we're all good now. Thanks for that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to try to answer the question, but if Bokar, it's clear that I'm not really answering it, then I'll take it offline and try to come back with something that is clearer for everybody. So I just want to say something that I think was implied but not explicitly stated. The way we get information about suppliers from a supplier's perspective, it's a little bit passive. So we seek information ourselves through the report that we've got, through our market intelligence information, and through people in our organization that have market knowledge. None of those things are things where you as a supplier is proactively doing something. We are looking at building some kind of portal, a BP portal, where you can enter your information and tell us a little bit about your company so that you can have your information lodged with BP directly. In the meantime, we work with Invest in Africa to help us to identify suppliers over and above what we already know. Today, in terms of you proactively making your information known to somebody or somewhere where we will pick it up, you can do that through Invest in Africa. But I do want you to understand that not registering with Invest in Africa does not mean that you will not get the RFI, because we may still identify you through another way. Okay. I did not mention the portal before because it is not ready yet, and we're in the early stages of building it, and I don't want to tell you something that we can't we cannot deliver quickly. So if that is your first question about how you get identified, I hope that is the answer. If your question is about understanding the opportunities that are coming up from a production perspective, then that information is available on slides 20 and 21. And I am about to move to slide 20 now. I'm going to slide 20 for the Arabic and the French-speaking rooms. In there, you can see all of the sourcing events that we are working on. And just to give you more of a flavor, we are in active sourcing right now. So some things that we are about to start developing the scope of work, and we will be looking for contractors, are things like we have to have somebody to manage operational spares, oils, lubes, and greases. We will need someone to help us with, mooring systems, radar early warning systems, pipeline integrity management. We've got things like waste management services. We have various marine vessels that we'll be taking to market relatively soon. So, and all of those things that I've mentioned, you can pick up from slides 20 and 21. So you'll see what is coming. Just to be clear, in case this is what you're thinking, we do not publicly publish RFPs in the papers. So if that's what you're looking for, you will not find it there. However, we are sharing in this manner to the market what our plans are. And if you just give me a moment, I'll just stop there for a minute in case any of my colleagues have anything they wish to add. I've seen something on the screen. Let me answer that question. No, the blue does not mean it has already started. It may not be that clear on the screen, but if you look at Q2, Q3 2021, there is a red line, and that shows you where we are. So that's now. And so anything to the left of that will have already started. Anything to the right of that is still ongoing. So you will see, for example, on slide 21, there is still some work to go. And again, quite a few of you should have already received RFIs from us in the past.
Jackie, I would just like to add that this is not a definitive plan. It can be subject to change as the project, as every project can be dynamic. So this is shared only for information and can be subjected to change.
Yeah.
Okay. Jackie, Sumaya, Anne, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your clarification. I don't forget as well Sidi Ali and Asma. Thanks all BP staff for your time, for getting us through all the process. As much as possible, we try to bring you clarity, and we're happy to contribute to supporting the process of the local content strategy and operational effectiveness in Mauritania. Just like this event that just occurred right now has tangibly demonstrated, we're here for this sake, and we also very much want to thank you for your great attention. Congratulations for joining us so numerously in three language rooms, in English, in French, in Arabic as well. And I just want to conclude by saying again, thank you to BP for having made this event possible alongside all the huge invisible hard work for our IT teams and our internal teams. For that, for more information, you can go to Invest in Africa. You can also go to our Mauritanian website, www.appmauritania.com. I will share it on the chat box, and we'll make sure that you will receive the presentation in three languages. Okay, the video is already public. You can have it on DP's website, but for the presentation, the materials, you will have it. You will have it, and you will be able to get through. So again, congratulations, Jackie. The floor is yours. Would you want to say some words?
Absolutely. Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to leave it to Sumaya, our Mauritanian colleague, to make the closing remarks. Sumaya, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Bokar. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate that you joined us today for the session, and we hope that it was beneficial for you. And as we mentioned, we are here to work with you and to make sure that all our local suppliers benefit from this exercise, and we make sure that you can have the opportunities with BP. This kind of session will be often. We will do it many times, so we make sure that you can understand very well. Any questions, we will try to respond as soon as possible through Invest to Africa for the moment, and soon we will have share with you any new things to help this local content, and really appreciate it. And thank you very much again, and see you.